Welcome to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis, and welcome to the Season 2 premiere and our debut on YouTube. Yes, I'm finally in video, in picture, live, and in living color, and we couldn't have picked a better day to arrive on YouTube. We're recapping last week's AEW Grand Slam, and if it was truly a Grand Slam for the company, they need one since CM Punk might have wrestled his last match for AEW. And over in WWE, a white rabbit. Yes, a white rabbit, of all things, has the wrestling world in buzz, and we'll talk about who could legitimately return to the WWE. And why is the Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, and the Bloodline story as perfect as it can be? This and more on our first ever YouTube episode. Stay tuned for the show. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis, and I just want to say how special this is. We talked about this a little on last week's episode of how much I've been wanting to do video podcasting for the last year. And we started this podcast last year after AEW's All Out pay-per-view inspired me because I'm like, once CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole, Bay, all appeared on AEW, it was like, okay, this industry's about to hit a boom period, and that's exactly what it's been so far. CM Punk may not be a part of that anymore, but we're going to talk about that a little later on in the show. It's AEW Grand Slam time. Also have a special glass of water, little agua, little H2O, because I'm going to be talking a lot today. And we have AEW Grand Slam, and they broke it up into 2 hours of Dynamite and then 2 hours of Rampage. I don't necessarily think they needed the 2 hours of Rampage. And going briefly mention that real quick. AEW Rampage was kind of a letdown. You know, this wasn't a Grand Slam event by any means. I don't know if you could say they hit a home run. There was a couple matches they might have, but for the most part, this was a letdown, and we're going to get that out of the way because the opening match was Sting and Darby Allin versus House of Blacks, Brody King and Buddy Matthews, potentially the last match that House of Black will ever have in AEW. We're going to talk about that a little later on in the show. And then they just put 2 back-to-back yawn tag team matches together. First with Hook and Action Bronson. And if you don't know the name Action Bronson, you shouldn't, because it's not necessary. It was bad. Action Bronson actually has a no bump clause in his contract, so it didn't help. You had Wardlow and Samoa Joe, and the entire time I was watching with my dad, and I'm like, okay, how long is this match going to take? Over under 3 minutes. Over under 3 minutes. And Jade Cargill's match, the over under was under. Samoa Joe and Wardlow's under. I mean, the highlight of the event was the match between Rey Fenix and Jungle Boy. That was a match. You'd expect those two to put on a show, and they did. And the last half of Rampage, the last hour, was actually pretty good. And it was 11 o'clock to midnight, so a lot of people were hitting the hay because you under-delivered that first hour. I truly believe that. AEW did not need 2 hours of content on AEW Rampage this past Friday at Arthur Ashe Stadium. Plus, to add on top of that it was recorded. Of course it was recorded because you wanted that crowd there from Dynamite on Wednesday. So I should have saved myself time and read spoilers, but I'm not a spoiler guy. I mean, if you listen to the podcast, we're going to talk about what happened. I'm not going to talk about any spoilers that could happen at future tapings. I'm just not that guy. And really, really disappointed with Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. That could have been something so much better for the wrestling fan. And here's why. If the buildup between Starks and Hobbs, best friends, Hobbs stabs him in the back, tries to end his career with his neck. Starks put on great promos, and Starks survives a lights out match against Hobbs. He's not trying to get revenge on Hobbs for nearly ending his career, trying to end Hobbs's. He's just surviving for a win. And it made Powerhouse Hobbs look really strong, but it made Starks look really weak. Made him look really weak. And two guys who are not weak by any means is Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Jericho, tuning to AEW Dynamite last Wednesday, and Chris Jericho has won the Ocho. You can see on the bottom ticker on our YouTube audience that Jericho wins the Ocho. He started this little trend saying, I want the Ocho. 7 isn't enough. I'm going to win the Ocho. And Ocho being Spanish for the number 8. And he's never won a championship or a world title in Ring of Honor. And Jericho and Claudio Castagnoli had a match I did not expect Jericho to go over by any stretch of the means. That was a surprise to have Chris Jericho beat Claudio Castagnoli. And as soon as Jericho hit the Judas effect, I was like, my eyes were just bugging right there, because Jericho beat Claudio Castagnoli for the Ring of Honor World title. And I was expecting Claudio to hold this title for quite some time, at least a year. Claudio, I was thinking, was going to be the face of Ring of Honor. But I feel like Tony Khan switched gears, and that was very evident with the result of Chris Jericho going over and winning the Ring of Honor World Championship. If you remember, back in 2019, Jericho versus Hangman Page to become the first ever AEW World Champion, Jericho won. Tony Khan put the company, AEW, on his back, and Jericho rode the first year of AEW's television time. He would eventually lose it to Jon Moxley, which Jon Moxley is doing some of the best work ever right now. And they would use the name Chris Jericho. Now, with Tony Khan wanting a television deal for Ring of Honor, who do you have as your world champion? Claudio Castagnoli is a great person. He can speak 5 languages. But Chris Jericho has kept his name for 30 years of his career and continues to reinvent himself. I think he's 52, 53 years old now, and he's not in the best shape of his career, but he's still putting on great matches, doing the best character work he has ever done in his career. This is really cool to watch him kind of loose of WWE's creative strain and let him go with it, because everything Jericho's done last 3-4 years has been money, and it's really cool to watch. So it's pretty evident they are riding Chris Jericho to build the Ring of Honor brand. And Wednesday, we had a win for homegrown talent. You know, Jericho and Claudio Castagnoli are not homegrown talent. They got their names built in WWE. But Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee lost the AEW World Tag Team titles to Max Caster, Anthony Bowens, team known as The Acclaimed, who have gotten, I don't know if this is PG, but gotten scissoring over. And it's been crazy to watch that The Acclaimed, and I said this on the show right after All Out. Tony Khan regrets not letting The Acclaim go over in Chicago at All Out, because that crowd was hot. That crowd was so behind them. They made baby faces, beloved baby faces like Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee. The IWC, the fans went crazy when they were released by WWE, and went crazy when they showed up in AEW. To get those guys booed out of the building, you're over. And The Acclaim can honestly attribute this to the pandemic, because the pandemic opened doors for teams like The Acclaimed to get over with the fans, to have TV time. And slowly but surely it's happened. But they really got to give it to the Gun Club. Billy Gunn, Austin Gunn, Colton Gunn. Without the Gun Club, without that feud with the Gun Club, without Billy turning on his own sons to join The Acclaim, this is a totally different story. Because the big thing is, quote unquote, Scissor me daddy. And we want to keep this a PG show, so we'll try their best to. But that went over with the fans, and the fans loved it. The fans absolutely loved it. Now, one of the biggest shocks from Wednesday night is Saraya, formerly known as Paige in WWE, is now All Elite. You can see it on the ticker on our YouTube channel right now that Saraya is All Elite. And that's big, guys. This is huge. It was a jaw-dropping moment at Arthur Ashe. And a lot of people are asking, is she cleared? Is she medically cleared? Can she wrestle? Well, I'll let you know this right now. She's not signing a deal with All Out or All Elite Wrestling if she isn't medically cleared. She's going to explain all this on Wednesday. I'm excited to watch Dynamite this Wednesday. But I can't help but think the dream matches were missing, because if she were to re-sign with WWE and they were allowing her to compete, this would be a different story. I don't think there's any question that she would sign with WWE. First in the regime of Triple H, good thing. But there's so many good dream matches in WWE that we won't get. Paige versus Bayley. Paige versus Becky Lynch. Cora Jade. Cora Jade is like a younger version of Paige. Asuka. Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan stepped up. I feel like Paige versus Liv Morgan would be a banger. Mandy Rose, how she's reinvented herself in NXT. You have Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley's just doing great stuff with Judgment Day right now. I would even watch Paige versus Ronda Rousey. We never got that match. And throw out a name nobody talks about, Paige versus Queen Zelina Vega. Zelina was starring in the Fighting With My Family movie for Paige, and she played the AJ Lee part where Paige's character, beat her for the Divas Championship in her Monday Night Raw debut. There's so many dream matches, and with AEW, this is a big get for their women's division. A huge opportunity for their women's division. I can only think of like 3, 4, maybe 5 dream matches. Obviously, we're getting Dr. Britt Baker. That was set up the moment that Saraya came down to the ring. Jamie Hayter, 2 UK girls going at it. I love that. Hayter's getting a lot of steam behind her. Ruby Soho. Ruby Soho's currently injured, but I would look forward to seeing her. And Toni Storm, again, another UK girl and one of the top women. But I would say Jade Cargill, but I don't think Jade Cargill's polished in the ring. I mean, she's undefeated right now, but the best she can do is like a 2-3 minute squash against whoever she faces, like we saw on Friday's Rampage. I just hate that we're going to miss out on these dream matches, because we did get a dream match in the main event between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, and really good main event. If you haven't watched it, you definitely want to go back and watch it, because it was nasty. And the entire time, I'm glued to my TV, just waiting for MJF, because throughout the entire match, MJF sitting in the upper level, spotlight on him with the chip in hand. I was just waiting for the moment where they look and they show MJF, but it's not MJF. It's an empty seat, and MJF tries to come in and cash in his chip. That's not happening, because they decided to give Jon Moxley a well-deserved kudos, applause in Arthur Ashe Stadium. And I felt like you could have also given it to Bryan Danielson. Danielson had his first ever in-ring match at AEW last year at Arthur Ashe Stadium against reigning AEW champion at the time, Kenny Omega. And they fought to a 30-minute time limit draw. It was the way to go. Like, Danielson, Mox goes over. We're going to get Moxley versus MJF eventually, but we're going to have some good matches. Hangman Adam Page won the Battle Royal to face Jon Moxley, or if MJF decides to cash in before then, it'd be Hangman versus MJF. I'm pretty sure CM Punk is just absolutely frustrated right now with that. We'll talk about that a little later. But, Wardlow made some comments this week saying that the AEW World title has been in shambles for months. And I have to agree. The title hasn't been the same since Kenny Omega dropped it last year. I believe that was Full Gear. Yeah, last year at Full Gear to Hangman Adam Page. No disrespect to Hangman Adam Page. I am a huge Hangman Page fan, but you have the best wrestler in the world, Kenny Omega, and it's going to take a drop off when he loses his title. Hangman Page had great matches against Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, like CM Punk, Adam Cole. Like he had great matches in his title run as world champion. But there was the mic. The microphone was where he struggled. He started to lose his footing a little bit. And then CM Punk wins the title at Double or Nothing. We think we're getting the summer of Punk. Punk injures his foot. MJF is gone. Jon Moxley becomes the interim champion. And then it's been hot potato ever since. And what made it worse was CM Punk getting suspended and potentially not wrestling for AEW ever again, which could be a lot, because rumors are that CM Punk and Tony Khan might be seeking a buyout of CM Punk's contract. And seeing that CM Punk only had a year in AEW, I'm still not convinced it's a work, not convinced it's a shoe. I'm not sure what it is, but that'd be huge if CM Punk has wrestled his final match. I feel like AEW can still put on a great product. I believe they've shown that the last few weeks without Punk, without Omega, without the Young Bucks there. They've been able to produce. Adam Cole's out with an injury right now. Malachi Black's leaving. Buddy Matthews is leaving, or at least on hiatus to recalibrate themselves. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But man, if CM Punk, that was one of the three from last year. That was like your NWO coming in. That was the Hogan, the Hall, the Nash, the Savage coming to WCW. That was the same type feel. And if CM Punk does not return to AEW, it's not a huge loss for the company, but it says something. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the White Rabbit, a storyline that hasn't even produced on TV yet. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some people who may make the jump to WWE. That next on Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis. You can see our social medias scrolling down on the ticker right now. You have our brand new YouTube channel, which I'm so excited to launch today as part of our season 2 premiere. We're still going to be on Spotify. We have accounts on Facebook and Instagram that you can follow. But before we get into the White Rabbit and who could potentially return to WWE, you may notice my setup that I'm glad to introduce on the podcast. And you see this poster behind me. It is AML Talk is Cheap. It was Sunday, August 28th, the day before my birthday. Went for my birthday. You're seeing Beer C, Bruiser, Brian Cage, FTR. I'm currently blocking the 1-star Brad Attitude, Rachel Ellering, and then you have Brock Anderson with his dad, Arn Anderson, the Enforcer. You got Gunner. It was a great event over in Salisbury, North Carolina, of all places, and I absolutely loved it. And really want to mention who had the poster. It was all for a charitable event, Cases for a Cause. Absolutely great stuff, and if you don't know about Cases for a Cause, it's a nonprofit organization that works to support the physical and emotional well-being of children in foster care by building relationships, providing for their basic needs, and educating the community while advocating for the children. And they're doing this, they sold off the poster to try to raise money for foster kids and to have a good Christmas. That's awesome. It's really cool. You can find Cases for a Cause on Facebook. That's where I found them. And, if you want to help, go help, because everyone deserves a good Christmas. And I've been very fortunate to have really good parents. lived in a good home, and they always tried to make Christmas the best they could, even though money wasn't, you know, at everybody's expense or whatever. And it'd be really cool to help these foster kids have a really good Christmas. So that's something that's near and dear to my heart. If you want to help, you can go Cases for a Cause on Facebook and learn more. But with that underway, we have a white rabbit. Okay. Now, it's a storyline that hasn't even seen TV, but everybody's talking about it. Okay. Everybody's talking about this white rabbit, and they're playing white rabbit at house shows. They're playing white rabbit at, commercial breaks in the arena. They're having QR codes, something about patricide, and it's crazy. Okay. Now, a lot of people are asking who it could be. It could be Karrion Kross's alter ego. Karrion Kross was the White Rabbit at Lucha Underground. If you remember his short stint there, I make the joke that Adam Rose could return because Adam Rose had the Exotic Express or something with the bunny. Okay. Bunny turns into the White Rabbit. Who knows there? And the cryptic messages right now are screaming Bray Wyatt. They are screaming Bray Wyatt at this point. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I am a huge Bray Wyatt fan. I have been a huge Bray Wyatt fan for years. Ever since I saw him, I looked up NXT online because a few friends were talking about it. This is before the WWE Network. WWE Network debuted in 2014, right before WrestleMania 30. And I saw these two tall guys being managed by this guy in a fedora and a rocking chair. And I was like, this is unique. This is cool. I like this. Ever since I've been hooked to the Wyatt family. And I'm going to be honest, the WWE Universe does not deserve Bray Wyatt to come back. They were all for Bray Wyatt. And then I saw him getting trashed online by fans who just simply don't know what they're talking about. He is a mastermind, and they're like, oh, he's boring. And he was particularly ridiculed against the Seth Rollins Hell in a Cell match that ended in a disqualification or no contest or whatever. It was a weird finish. That's Vince McMahon's fault, not Bray's. And everyone was like, oh, this is terrible. But as soon as he was released, everybody jumps on the, what? How could you release one of the best talents? Yeah, you didn't appreciate Bray Wyatt. You didn't respect Bray Wyatt. And now you want to jump on, oh, man, why? I mean, I'm just telling you, you called him horrible in the ring. You called him boring. You trashed the Fiend character. You trashed the Firefly Funhouse character. USA wanted it. Fox wanted it. They were clamoring for the character. And Bray's released, and every fan just turns and they're like, oh, this is awful. Why would you do this? And there's been a hole for 2 years in WWE without Bray Wyatt. We recently saw Braun Strowman return. Again, I've seen the same stuff with Braun Strowman. Okay. I saw it with Cody. Fans hated Cody in AEW. And then all of a sudden rumors start with him going to WWE. And this is why I can talk to a lot of wrestling fans, and a lot of them know their stuff. And I love, like, when somebody's truly passionate about the industry, it's awesome. I host Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Have my good friend Jason Seatech on. Me and him can talk for hours. We can't because radio show's only an hour and we got like 14, 15 minutes to talk wrestling. Maybe I could have him on Drop the Mic here soon. That would be a great time. But if people are like, oh, this is horrible, and oh my gosh, they're back. It's like, really, guys? Come on, man. But this begs the question with White Rabbit, who could return to WWE? Could Bray Wyatt return to WWE? I think he can. I really think it happens. I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's a matter of when. A lot of people were talking about maybe returning this past Friday on SmackDown. If Bray Wyatt returned on a random SmackDown just because it was 9/23, it would be a complete gaffe, a complete waste. I don't think he returns at Saudi Arabia at Crown Jewel. He could return at Survivor Series. I could see that as a possibility. He could return at the Royal Rumble. I feel like they won't do the Royal Rumble though, because that's really written for Cody Rhodes to come back. But Survivor Series is in November. It's what, couple months away? Have this White Rabbit stuff. If it is him, have this White Rabbit stuff, keep going. Boom. Bray returns at Survivor Series and goes after Roman Reigns for the Universal title, goes after Braun Strowman, there's a lot of people, goes after Randy Orton. If Orton could return in the near future, and Bray's last loss in WWE was to Randy Orton at WrestleMania, this would be something to keep going. And begs the question, like, who else could return to WWE? And I've seen a few AEW names mentioned. You had Malachi Black, who's asked to take some time off and to recalibrate himself. He's not happy with his character right now due to reports. And I would have said no. I would have said no to Malachi Black coming to WWE until the mental health conversations got leaked. I think that is a big no-no. I think that is just baffling to me that would be even leaked to the public. And I don't know if that was a private message with Tony Khan that got leaked. I don't know who all was in that room when that was talked about. But man, if somebody talked about something that personal with me, I would never wrestle for them again. And it was really cool to meet Malachi Black last November at WrestleCade, as it's a fan convention now of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Really great. Highly recommend you go. It'll be their 10th year, I believe. Decade of Mayhem right there. And it was cool, like, hearing him, like, talk and everything. He's a very convicted person. Like, he stands by his convictions. And somebody talked about something that personal and leaked it to the media. I'm sorry, I'm not wrestling for them ever again. So, and these names I'm going to run by, they're under contract of AEW. Let's not overlook that. It would have to be a mutual parting where Tony Khan grants them a release or the contract runs out. This is totally speculation of like, okay, their contract's up. Do they go up? Do they re-sign with AEW? Do they go elsewhere? Do they go to the WWE? And after Malachi Black, and this makes sense. Like, Malachi's wife is at WWE. He had major success in NXT under Triple H and was even considered at one time to dethrone the Beast Incarnate Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania for the WWE title. It was switched to Drew McIntyre, but McIntyre and Aleister Black were the two names considered. And someone who's been linked with Aleister Black, Malachi Black for his career is Buddy Matthews, formerly known as Buddy Murphy. He also went to an indie show, said pretty much the exact same thing as Malachi Black did, saying he needs to recalibrate himself and he's stepping away. And if Malachi goes to WWE, Murphy's going, Buddy's going. It's over. That they're a package deal at this point in their career. And yeah, this would leave a hole with the House of Black, because House of Black was, doing pretty good. I would say they hadn't reached their full potential, but with the hope of the trios titles being there, I'd be like, okay, they could eventually win them over the next year. But I feel like that loss to the Dark Order, I feel like that loss kind of, had the writing on the wall in terms of the ceiling for House of Black. I was really liking what Julia Hart could have been, but if Julia Hart can really take over the House of Black, they've already tried to trademark the term, AEW has, have Julia Hart, Brody King, bring one or two more people in. It won't be the same, but it could work. And somebody's been linked to Malachi Black's wife, Selena Vega, is Andrade. Andrade would definitely benefit from going to WWE. I mean, he would benefit greatly by having a reunion with Zelina Vega. If you remember, right at the beginning of the pandemic, Andrade was with Angel Garza, Austin Theory, Zelina Vega, and at the beginning of the Performance Center, where WWE were having to hold their shows due to COVID, Andrade was probably the top heel, on Monday Night Raw. You can debate all you want, but he was. It was good stuff. And what messed up the momentum was Zelina Vega wanted to do her Twitch. Vince McMahon said no. Zelina left. Zelina was granted her release. And then all of a sudden, Austin Theory disappears. All of a sudden, Angel Garza's wrapped up in this, Val Venus-like character. Very PG Val Venus character of trying to play the ladies' man. And Andrade is left without direction. And then Andrade gets released. It was horrible there, And Andrade's wife, Charlotte, still works for WWE. I mean, it could happen. Now, two names, or really one, that I don't expect to go to WWE. Wouldn't be surprised if they made their way up there, but it would be these guys right here, the top guys, FTR, because just watching them interact with fans at this event that AML put on with Cases for a Cause, it was awesome. They love this. They love traveling the world, even though they're losing some names. I mean, they've almost wrestled every tag team. I mean, they've worked with Mercy Machine Guns in 6-man tag match. I feel like they're going to get an actual 2v2 match soon. They've worked with the Briscoes. They're working with Aussie Open. They've worked with the Young Buck. Like, they've worked with these teams, and they're like, okay, who can we wrestle now? They love going around, and they've been dealing with a lot in terms of injuries or personal life, but they are stand-up guys, and they just love this. They're having so much fun, and you can tell. You can tell when you meet someone, and this is wrestling or just across the board with work or a career. You can tell when someone's just doing it to do it, and then you can tell if they're actually loving and enjoying what they do, and FTR does. And there's one thing, WWE's tag team division hasn't been built yet. I feel like it's going to get there. I feel like this past Friday on SmackDown, it took a step ahead with the Usos versus the Brawling Brutes. You get Imperium to run out there after that great match, or I believe during the great match even. And it's awesome. Like, they're starting to build, but it's not there yet. It's not there yet enough to lure a tag team like FTR, like, hey, we need to go WWE. They're just going to A and Company, winning the tag titles, and having a great time. And speaking of a great time, it's been awesome on YouTube. When we come back, it's our wrestling wrap. It's our fan favorite Rose, Bud, and Thorn segment. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to talk about what's happening this week on wrestling when we come back on Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Michael Davis, and it has been awesome. I love the setup. Again, if you want to help foster kids have a better Christmas, you can contact Cases for a Cause on Facebook. They'll be happy to talk to you. It's an awesome, awesome thing that they're doing, and I'm just loving this right now. Like, I am having so much fun. I know there's going to be kinks with anything you do. Started the podcast last year, had some kinks I had to work out, had to go get a new microphone, started that sports talk radio show, had to work out a few kinks there, kind of get my groove. And this YouTube endeavor is going to be the same thing, but I know a lot of people ask for it. I've had at least a dozen people over the last year, text me who know me personally and like, hey, have you thought about YouTube? Have you thought about, getting your face on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook Live. And this is a step in the right direction. And I'm so excited, guys. This is awesome. And I appreciate the support and the love that you guys have given me. But now it's time for our last segment. Okay. We have the wrestling wrap. We're going to talk about our rose, our thorn, and our bud. And if you have not listened to the podcast the last few weeks, this is something we debuted a few weeks ago. The rose is what we liked most about this past week in wrestling. The thorn is what we dislike the most. And the bud is what we're looking forward to this week. And it's great because I'm going to talk about my rose first. And actually, let's go thorn. Let's go thorn because I can lead into that. Thorn on NXT, SmackDown, Solo Sikoa has been appearing, and not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before on NXT, Solo Sikoa beat Carmelo Hayes for the NXT North American title, showed up on SmackDown. He's North American champion. The Usos are tag team champions. It's great. All the gold in the bloodline. Well, for some reason, I even had to rewind because I was like, what? They start NXT with Solo Sikoa and Carmelo Hayes going in the office of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. And I was like, okay. And then it's all of a sudden, Solo Sikoa was handing in his North American title because apparently he wasn't supposed to be in the match. It was supposed to be Wes Lee, and the fans didn't vote Solo Sikoa. Even though he beat the champion, he had to vacate the title. I was like, this makes no sense because now Carmelo Hayes just loses a title and you don't have a North American champion. They're getting a ladder match at Halloween Havoc to determine a new champion. But guys, come on. Like, really? Did you just do it to have that picture at the press conference of all the bloodline draped in gold? That's my only it's my only idea, Like, that's the only way they could have done it. But my rose also includes the bloodline. If you have not noticed, we are repping the bloodline. And, you have Yokozuna, you have Rikishi, you have the late great Umaga, and, lower on the short shirt, you have the Usos, you have Roman Reigns. There's two people. There's two people missing on this shirt. One of them is the potential opponent for Roman Reigns at this year's WrestleMania in Hollywood, The Rock. Hopefully they can get The Rock versus Roman Reigns, make it a whole ordeal too. Like, invite the entire Samoan dynasty to sit front row at WrestleMania. It would be awesome. But another person is missing on this shirt, and he's missing in family portraits when they were younger. He's pretty much missing a championship right now, and that is the one and only Honorary Uce, Sami Zayn. If you did not watch SmackDown, I don't think a lot of segments nowadays are must see. There's a few. MJF's pipe bomb in AEW before he left for the summer. That's a must watch. Okay. I would even say CM Punk's media scrum, his final words in AEW potentially. I feel like you could, go back and watch that. You need to go back and watch that, if obviously with headphones. But this past SmackDown, if you did not watch, it was just a roller coaster of emotions. Bloodline come out, all draped in new shirts, except Sami Zayn. The Bloodline arrived to the arena without Sami Zayn, and all the attention's on Solo Sikoa, and he's the missing piece of the Bloodline. Sami Zayn's just sitting there like, yeah, me too. And it's perfect because Roman Reigns demands Solo Sikoa, acknowledge him as the tribal chief, even though the elders sent him. Solo Sikoa decide, I'm not going to do what Jey Uso did. I'm not going to do what Jimmy Uso did. I'm not going to learn the hard way. I'm going to acknowledge you. And then Sami Zayn steals the microphone as they're leaving. It was like, I just wanted to say, I acknowledge you too, Roman. And it was like so funny. It's comical. It's hysterical. It's awesome. And then Roman Reigns is like, why are you acknowledging me? Why are you here? You're not one of us? And Roman demands Sami take his shirt off. And everyone flips out, stunned. And Jey Uso's like loving this because Jey and Sami have had beef. I'm just sitting there thinking, not right now. There's so much more you can do with this. Not right now. And then Roman says, because we got you a new shirt. And it's an Honorary Uce shirt. And the crowd loved it. Sami loved it, ate it up. Jey Uso is just stunned because now he still has to deal with them. It was perfect. It was perfect. And I tried in 60 seconds to tell you how perfect it was. You have to go back and watch it. They have done so well with this story. And now they have new legs. Roman's accepted him, got him a new shirt. Everyone's going to flock to WWEshop.com to try to get an Honorary Uce shirt. It's perfect. It's awesome. It's great marketing. It just built so much to the story. And I feel like that's why I've enjoyed Roman's title run the last 2 years, is each time it's building a story. It's not the same old stuff that the internet would like you to believe. He's building a story, and he's building towards The Rock. And Sami Zayn could be a huge part of this. I believe Sami Zayn could, try to get The Rock to come back for this match. Like maybe play Paul Heyman's role of trying to be the, advisor, the client, the manager. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens could team up and dethrone the Usos. I mean, there's so much stuff that you could do with Sami Zayn now being an official Honorary Uce of the Bloodline. And my bud this week, I'm going to be honest, we have Cameron Grimes versus Joe Gacy on NXT. Not a lot of people are talking about. It's not what a lot of people are talking about. But I think this could be a top 50 match in 2022 if they allow them the time to tell their story, because they've been building that story, and it feels like it's finally going to come to a head this week on NXT. Tomorrow night, this obviously dropping on Monday. It's Tuesday night on NXT. And speaking of NXT, for the rest of the week, there's a heavy black and gold NXT influence on Raw. You can see Triple H's book in this. You have Matt Riddle versus Damian Priest. After Matt Riddle, refused to join Judgment Day last week, kind of intertwining the Judgment Day story with the Mysterio story with Riddle and Rollins. Seth Rollins facing Rey Mysterio. Okay. Now, Seth was the first ever NXT champion. Rey Mysterio didn't spend any time in NXT. But then you got Kevin Owens and Johnny Gargano teaming up. How cool is that? Against the Alpha Academy, Otis and Chad Gable. Otis, by the way, went to war with Braun Strowman this week on SmackDown. I thought it was going to be a 2-3 minute squash, but they made Otis look legit. And of course, Strowman got the win. No surprise there. But really great stuff on SmackDown. Probably the most enjoyable SmackDown I've watched in 2022 thus far. And you have Bianca Belair versus Io Sky on Monday Night Raw. A lot of people are probably going to watch this throughout the week, so won't talk about that too much, but it's going to be a great Raw. If you're watching this, go in and tune into Raw. And then on Wednesday, Dynamite, there, as of 2 o'clock today, there's only one match announced. And it was going to be Jon Moxley versus Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson coming over from New Japan. And Jon Moxley's only lost to 2 people this year. He's lost CM Punk at All Out, and he lost to Juice Robinson over in Japan. And now they have a match at AEW. Juice Robinson's really come a long way since CJ Parker days of NXT at the beginning of the WWE network. Terrible gimmick. Awful gimmick. And now he's doing some of his best stuff in Japan. And I feel like Juice Robinson's a name that could jump over to AEW or WWE a year from now. He could be on either of those programs weekly and be doing great stuff. I feel like Moxley's going to win and avenge his loss over Juice Robinson. But The second match that was announced earlier this afternoon, Chris Jericho defended his newly won Ring of Honor World title against former Ring of Honor champion Bandito. This is awesome. I absolutely love this match. This could be match of the week. You know, Cameron Grimes versus Joe Gacy is going to be great. I believe Moxley Robinson is going to be great. This could be match of the week. Bandito has been compared to a young Eddie Guerrero, just with his moves, everything. Bandito put on a great match earlier this year against Jonathan Gresham to kind of unify the Ring of Honor World title picture. Chris Jericho's had great bouts with Eddie Guerrero in the past, and now he's going to face Bandito. It's going to be great, guys, and it's going to be for the Ring of Honor title, and they're obviously trying to get ROH on TV. Chris Jericho is going to win this match, but it's going to be so entertaining to watch. And we've got two people speaking. Saraya is going to speak. Everybody talking about, oh, she's not cleared. Calm down. Calm down. She's cleared. She signed with AEW. She's going to have 3-4 dream matches, and hopefully she's in great health. And MJF is going to speak. Perhaps the biggest draw for AEW right now, perhaps a bigger draw than CM Punk or Adam Cole or Bryan Danielson had been the last year, because this guy who is a heel at heart is being cheered tremendously by the fans, and he can't get heat right now, just like Chris Jericho predicted. It's going to be a great week for wrestling. It's been a great YouTube show. Thank you so much. We're going to be debuting, obviously, this podcast on YouTube, but we're also going to be debuting some video content. It's coming soon to you. You're going to have to stay tuned to our Facebook and Instagram accounts for more on that. But this is me. This is Michael Davis. This has been the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast, and I hope you all have a great week. This has been a Mic Drop Monday, and see you next time.